So, a fresh new week has arrived, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, teams started to make their push for playoff positioning, we saw some star-studded matchups go down between some of the top teams in the league, and players that got traded at the trade deadline continued to build chemistry with their new teammates, so of course we have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, PrizePicks. As the 2023 NBA season continues on, PrizePicks is the best and easiest way to play daily fantasy to stay engaged on all of the excitement. All you have to do is pick between 2 and 6 players and the over or under on their projections, and you can win up to 20 times your original entry. Choose between points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers made, fantasy points, and more, plus you can even make mixed sports entries, so if you also happen to be a fan of football, baseball, soccer, or anything else, PrizePicks has you covered. When you play at PrizePicks, you're also not competing against anyone else, it's simply you versus the projections available. For today's slate of games, I'm looking at playing Desmond Bane to score over 24.5 points, Tyus Jones to score over 14 points, and Russell Westbrook to dish out over 7 assists. By going down to the link in the description of this video and using promo code REFERENCE when you sign up, you also get a deposit match bonus of up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Tiffany, and she feels as though it's crazy how the Grizzlies went from the most liked young team on the rise to being one of the most hated teams in the league within a year. To start this one off, she absolutely has a point. When Morant was first drafted, he immediately helped speed up the rebuilding process they were in, and by year 2, he led them to a playoff appearance. The Grizzlies played hard, they played fast, they made a ton of exciting plays, and they had a lot of fun doing it. I'll say right now that there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing the game at this level and having fun while you do it, and when teams start doing that, it not only brings a ton of eyes their way, but it also makes it easier to root for them. However, when that joy and overall confidence starts to veer into arrogance, that's where the flip tends to happen in most people's eyes, and that's a line that the Grizzlies have been towing for a while now. There is nothing wrong with being confident in your ability on the court, celebrating success, and making the game fun for fans, but the Grizzlies every year seem to push things further and further, and at this point, I don't think anyone would disagree with the fact that they've begun to cross that line into arrogance. They talk a lot of trash to other teams and players, they disregard their competition, as exemplified by Morant's infamous quote about not being worried about anybody in the West, and now Morant is starting to get into some serious trouble off the court, which is only going to add fuel to the flames currently burning. I'm not going to comment too much on the specifics of what Morant is currently caught up in right now, but it's bad enough for the league to have suspended him over it, which says all that needs to be said. His actions have consequences, he's rubbing fans the wrong way right now with how he's acting, and in turn, it's making the Grizzlies a super unlikable group. Referring back to the original take that sparked this conversation, it's obviously possible to be outgoing and still be well liked by the masses, but not when your actions come off as arrogant or, even worse, possibly criminal. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Tom, and he says that Russell Westbrook is once again going to be the scapegoat when the Clippers crumble in the playoffs. The Russell Westbrook dialogue over the last few seasons has become a bit tiresome because there are two extremes clashing and both sides can take it a bit far at times. The people that blame Russ for everything on every team that he's on and overanalyze every single mistake that he makes can take it way too far with their slander, and then on the flip side, the people who insist that Russ is still a top-tier playmaker that can thrive in the right situation have to accept the reality that his days as one of those those players is probably over. Russell Westbrook is an easy scapegoat for fans of a team because he's so polarizing, and the truth is, he's obviously not the sole reason for the shortcomings he and the Lakers experienced over the last few seasons, but it's also true that he contributed to the team falling short of those expectations. The Clippers started this season having brought in John Wall, hoping to bolster their point guard spot with someone who can orchestrate an offense and create looks for those around him, but it didn't work out between the two. They have now brought in Russell Westbrook to replace him as their starting point guard, and the harsh truth is that he's not much of an upgrade over the current version of John Wall. The Clippers have not won a game since acquiring Russ, and people are already attributing the two things to each other, but the truth of the matter is that how far the Clippers will go will come down to how well Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play. Paul George is not off the hook if he has another underwhelming run, and it's especially the case because of the fact that George was the one who recruited Russ to come play with them. Kawhi is already a multiple-time champion, so I'd say more of the pressure is on Paul George, especially compared to Westbrook. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Max, and he says that with the way the Knicks are playing right now, along with how they're built, they're good enough to make a run to the conference finals. The Knicks have now climbed their way all the way up to 5th place in the East standings, and are 9-1 in their last 10 games, making them as hot as anybody in the NBA. The Julius Randle experience is a wild ride, but he's easily playing some of the best basketball of his career right now. Jalen Brunson being added to this group has been a godsend, as he's elevated his play to the point where there was a real conversation about him being snubbed from the All-Star game, and after frustrating the fans for years with his questionable rotations, Tom Thibodeau has found lineups that maximize their potential and fit well with each other. Throughout most of the early season, people were skeptical about them as a playoff contender when they were floating around the play-in tournament range of the standings, but now they're a team that nobody will want to play in the first round. With all of this being said, though, Julius Randle in the regular season and Julius Randle in the postseason are two completely separate entities until proven otherwise, so before we all hop onto the Knicks wagon, we need to see Randle prove that he can maintain this kind of production in games that mean the most, as the last time we saw him in playoff action, he had one of the worst series we've ever seen from someone on an all-NBA team. I'm still easily putting the Celtics, Bucks, and 76ers in a tier above the rest of the conference, but the Knicks and Cavaliers are right below them, and they're not an easy out by any means. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.